There was this guy, 22 male, who I, 20 female, have gone on a few dates with in the past couple of months. He's nice, and so far we've only progressed to going on public dates. But about a week ago, we finally decided to have a nice date at my place. Since it was going to be at my place, I let him know before that I was on my period, because I wasn't sure what expectations he had, or where his boundaries were yet. And we agreed to just have a nice takeout dinner and watch a movie. He comes over and we eat, then sit down on the couch to pick a movie when he says that it sucked that I was on my period. Then he said how he thought it was so strange that women give birth through the vagina but have periods from their butts. This was a completely unpromoted statement from him, and I'm still not sure how we got on the topic, to be honest. I asked him what he meant by that, and he said, again, exactly what he had said before. I kinda smiled, assuming he was very much just joking, and said, "Oh yeah, so weird," thinking that he was going to start laughing soon to end the joke. He didn't, and instead started to talk about his first and only girlfriend he'd had in high school, and how she used to complain about bad period poops all the time. At this point, I ask him if he's being serious, and he looks a little confused and says he is. I ask him to explain how he came to that conclusion, and he explained that his first experience being around periods was the high school girlfriend, and before then he had never received or seen much information. He understood it was something that happened inside the body and that blood came out somewhere, but assumed it came out of the vagina until he heard her complaining and realized it actually came out of the butt. It was very unexpected coming from a 22-year-old man. I somehow managed to keep my composure when I told him that periods do in fact come out of the vagina and not butts. He looked confused and then a little frustrated and started insisting to me that was wrong, and then kept saying, "Are you sure?" As if I was confused about where it came out of my own body. I explained to him the anatomy a bit and how it worked, but he was very adamant. Eventually, he conceded that most women must have periods like that, but some, hence his ex-girlfriend, have their periods from their butts. He just could not understand, no matter how many times I tried to explain it to him, that he had just simply come to the wrong conclusion and misinterpreted his girlfriend's words. The whole situation became so much that I started to laugh. I was doubled over, clutching my stomach, crying, laughing over the whole debacle, and he sat there red-faced, continuing to try and argue with me. Eventually, he said he was ready to leave, and did before we could watch a movie. I felt bad for laughing after he left, because I could tell that had been when he decided to leave, and he also texted me later that night to say he had done a little bit of research on his own, and that he was no longer interested in pursuing any sort of relationship because he couldn't stand to be with someone who laughed at someone for not understanding. Am I the a-hole? Now the top comments. The funniest part is that he is mansplaining to her something that he mansplained to himself. He was educated correctly, then took some small related piece of info and corrected his previous thoughts and told himself that he was wrong. And I lied. The funniest part is indeed the fact that he thought periods came out of the butt, despite being correctly taught about them. The second funniest part is that he considered himself so authoritative that he could declare to a woman that some women, unbeknownst to her, menstruate through their butts. Not the a-hole. Honestly, this is for the best. And it's not because I think he's stupid. It's because he was digging in his heels this fucking hard over something he knows he has zero knowledge of. Compounded by the fact that he refused to even entertain the idea that you might be right about something you experience regularly until he'd looked it up on his own. I'm not saying it's bad to want to verify, but this is a guy who needs to always be right and never wants to let his girlfriend teach him anything. Not the a-hole. I am a guy, I'm 29, and I have very little sympathy for adults who don't understand periods. Before y'all come at me and call me a white knight or a simp, let me be clear. We live in a day and age where you have the world's collective knowledge in your pocket. I have heard lots of excuses for why people don't know about these types of things, but at a certain point, that burden is on them entirely. Like, I'd be laughing at him too for something I learned about when I was a preteen. The oldest daughter is straight-laced and is doing the whole get married and have a traditional life. She places a lot of emphasis on her upcoming wedding. My youngest daughter is the opposite. While I don't agree with some of her choices, she likes to take hallucinogens, travel, and, I guess, to be a modern-day hippie. She likes the term digital nomad. She's an adult, she pays for her way of life. There's not much more I can do. Oldest kicked my youngest out of the wedding party. It's because my youngest has eloped with her boyfriend. The guy is about 10 years older than her, divorced with 2 kids. I think what set my oldest off is that her fiancé comes from money, and the wedding will be stupid lavish. However, my youngest's husband has a lot more money, and he wholeheartedly supports my daughter's artistic temperament. The oldest is being told by her in-laws that her sister doesn't have the same family values as what she's being married into. My oldest has banned her sister from the wedding and says she's going no contact with her sister over her lifestyle choices. I told my oldest what is done is done. She needs to grow up, not expect everyone to live by her lofty standards. She also needs to stop being jealous of her sister, or she might as well make her wedding dress green. Now she has banned me from the wedding. My husband isn't going to go now that I'm forbidden, or his other daughter is forbidden. My oldest is going on a rampage on social media, talking about how her dad refuses to walk her down the aisle at the wedding. I told her she was playing the victim for no reason. Oldest, her fiancé, and his family are all blasting up her social media, saying we are immoral people. Now the top comments. I think that was a funny comment. Also fitting, so not the a-hole on that basis. I am picturing the Wicked Witch of the West. Let's hope there are no liquids at the wedding. No surprise then about the flying monkeys on social media. Not the a-hole. Your daughter is a bridezilla. But because she's the eldest daughter and she is a perfectionist, she is probably suffering of eldest daughter syndrome. Check eldest daughter effect or firstborn daughter syndrome. And that perfectionism comes from expectations put on her to be the example, while her youngest sister was free to do as she pleased. There is a lot of pain there. Don't let your daughter get married without her family by her side. Heal or begin treating the wound before it's too late. By the way, I'm not excusing her behavior, but I think it's important you see it from this perspective too. Not the a-hole. It sounds like she's mad her sister got married before she did. I'd be upset too, honestly, but that's me being petty. My younger sister is the same as your youngest daughter. Experimental, traveler, a digital hippie. I would never go no contact with my sister over how she chooses to live her life. Am I jealous? Yeah, her life sounds great. Am I happy with mine? Straight edge and traditional? Yes. What's done is done. If this is how your oldest wants to behave because her sister got married before she did, that's her fault. She's not just a bridezilla, she's an a-hole. My girlfriend, 23 female, and I, 24 male, just moved in together yesterday. I moved into her apartment that she had shared with her roommate before I moved in. So the apartment was half furnished, since her roommate took half of everything. I lived in an incredibly small bachelor-style studio, so the only things I really had was a queen bed, a couch that she hated, and a TV. We agreed to keep my bed and bed frame since she had a full. She suggested we go to IKEA to restock the house, and she was super excited about it. When we got there, she filled our entire cart with furniture, kitchen, and bathroom stuff. She was asking my opinion on stuff, and I was happy to give it, but I saw the bill racking up pretty quickly. She ended up getting so much stuff that I saw as pointless, like bathroom rugs, a soap dispenser, a dresser even though she has one. She got a second matching bedside table for my side of the bed, some art for the apartment, and 2 giant rugs, one for the bedroom and one for the living room. And this is just some of the stuff I didn't think we needed. There was plenty more. We ended up having 2 full carts of stuff, and before we even went to check out, she said everything else we can just get on Amazon. I was genuinely in shock she thought we needed even more than all of this crap. But we went to check out, and just like I thought, the total was almost $1,400. She asked the cashier if we could split the bill halfway on 2 cards, and I was horrified. I told her no way was I paying half for all of this. She looked surprised and we quickly began to argue. She told me that this was for the both of us, but I disagreed and said I didn't need half of this stuff. After about 5 minutes of arguing and holding up the line, she paid and we left. The entire hour ride home, we argued. And when we got home, I was given the silent treatment after being called a cheap jerk. Am I the a-hole here? Now the top comments. Of course you're the a-hole. You have moved in and are creating a home together. You have to expect to share expenses regarding things like the home you share. The fact that you previously lived in a bachelor-style apartment, code for a regular apartment just with no furniture, isn't an excuse. Just because you are comfortable living in a box with just a bed in it doesn't mean that she should have too. There is nothing wrong with getting a few soft furnishings to make a home feel more comfortable. You should have spoken about what you planned to buy and how you would pay for everything before you went. Even if you felt like she was getting carried away picking up too much stuff, that would have been the point, to say she should probably rein it in because you were splitting the bill and it was getting too expensive. Non-essentials could wait for another time perhaps. Not waiting until you got to the cashier to drop it on her that you have no intention of contributing anything at all. It seems to me like you just expected her to be responsible for furnishing the home that you also live in, instead of understanding that it's also your apartment now too, not a hotel. She's right to be mad. Also, you don't consider stuff like soap dispensers and bath mats to be necessary items? What the hell? Did you live in a cave before? Nothing she picked up was unnecessary. Everyone sucks here for poor communication, but you're the a-hole for one simple reason. You were okay with the things your girlfriend wanted to buy, all of them normal household items, many of them specially for you, when you thought she would pay for them. But when she asks you to pony up, it's suddenly too much. You two really should have talked about this beforehand and came up with a budget and shopping list, as well as a plan for who would pay for what. Communication is key. Maybe you can sit down with her after you both calm down and go through the purchases one by one. She can explain the rationale for each item and you can either agree and chip in or pass. For those items you believe are truly unnecessary or frivolous, she can choose to pick up the difference if they're important to her or return them. Hopefully you can both chalk this up as a learning experience and do better next time. Update. After reading many of your comments, I apologized to my girlfriend and Venmo'd her for the half. But as of now, I am currently in trouble because my girlfriend saw this post. Not from Reddit, but from a goddamn TikTok. Currently in trouble again. Thanks for the judgment and making me see the light. I, female 42, have 2 children with my ex, Mike, male 47, including Val, female 17. She is in her senior year of high school and deciding where she wants to apply for college. We have been lucky enough to save a college fund, totaling $150,000 for Val. When looking at schools she was interested in, I sat her down and talked her through the process, plus her fund. Mike lives in another state, but knew we were having this talk. I told her how much she had and discussed different options. I told her how state schools are typically cheaper and how she might have to take out a loan if she chose a more prestige school or didn't qualify for scholarships. I told her that if she didn't spend all the money on schooling, it would still be hers after graduation. I also brought up how staying close to home would save on living expenses if she didn't want to live on campus. I wanted her to make an informed decision with all the facts, especially financially. Because of this, Val has looked at a range of state/Ivy schools. Mike called me furious, saying that Val was considering a school close to where I live and that it was only because I had scared her into it by telling her she couldn't afford other schools. I told him I'd had an age-appropriate conversation about college, finances, and student debt with Val, and she was making decisions that are in her best interest, not mine or his. Before this, Val had considered moving in with her dad, as he lived within driving distance of an Ivy League school she wanted to go to. Now, she is apparently looking at other schools and isn't as on board with that discussion anymore. Mike said that I had financially blackmailed her so that she wouldn't go live with him, and that I'd only told her all these things to scare her financially. Now the top comments. Tentatively not the a-hole. Unless you are leaving out certain details or motives, I don't see a problem. You said nothing about withholding money, so it's clearly not blackmail. You made a valid point about schooling close to home, as long as it was clear that could be your home or Mike's home. Seeking financial aid for college is quite common, so it's not like more expensive schools are off the table. But it's also reasonable to avoid the debt if she has that option. Now, clearly, we weren't there for the discussion, and there's obviously room for manipulation in a conversation like that. But taken at face value, it sounds like you've simply given her information relevant to her decision and let her go forth to make it herself. If that's not the case, then you already know who the a-hole is. Not the a-hole. I'm assuming this is in the US. Student debt is very real and shouldn't be taken lightly. Based on what you've said, you didn't tell her she had to go to a specific school. You told her to consider all of the costs and highlighted a benefit if she found a way to keep costs down, and that's having money after she graduates. I work at a university, and there's no way I'd let any kids I had go to an out-of-state school for undergrad unless they had a scholarship or the school was extra special in a particular field. At my school, OOS students pay almost $60,000 a year to attend, which just turns my stomach. Tell her to wait until she gets her Fin Aid package from each school before she makes her final decision. Also, encourage her to apply for as many scholarships as possible. Also, let her know that schools with on-campus housing hire resident assistants, and the position usually covers housing and meals. You just have to have lived on campus before. It's another great way to bring down the costs. Just be sure to share with her all of her options so she can make a good decision. A qualified not the a-hole. These are all considerations, and you are giving her the opportunity to make an informed decision. She's about to be an adult, and she needs to know how to do that.